Hey, my name's Noah Downs. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not yet your lawyer unless I am. Hello, client. I'm about to talk about a lot of stuff in this video, including potential legal information, which is offered for educational purposes only and is not meant to give advice or create an attorney-client relationship between us. You're probably a wonderful person, and I am available for hire, but you got to email me for that or like DM me, something like that. Just watching this video doesn't mean I'm giving you legal advice. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't take this legal information and try it at home. Go to a friend's house.
What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I'm back with who's become a very familiar face on this channel at this point, our good friend Noah, aka at MyLawyerFriend. Good to have
Hey,
you here.
buddy. It's good to be
Yeah,
back. I feel like I was reading comments after the last one. People were like, oh, yeah, these two could just like hang out. I was like, I'd do a hangout show with you.
yeah,
Like,
we
we
could.
have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So, speaking of lots to talk about, boy, is there confusion on the internet when it comes to legality, and I think some degree that's by design. But
Yeah.
what we're here to talk to you about is gaming licenses. Obviously, one of the most well publicized issues in that is the one we all know about from a couple years ago, and that was the OGL fiasco from the
Never
WotC
heard of
side of
it.
things. Right? But there's a reason that licenses like those exist,
Right.
and I think ultimately, for a positive, there's a reason we've landed where we've landed on the Dungeons and Dragons side of things by putting this license into a Creative Commons attribution, which means that, I will let Noah go into it in more detail, but
Yeah.
they can't change it now in
Yeah.
a detrimental way because they no longer have the rights to do so,
Right.
which is, I think, and, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's a testament to you believing in what you're putting out there. It's good as it is, and I want people to have it, to let them do what they want with it. I like it. Go free. I set you
Right.
free, kind of a thing.
It's because, we'll get into it obviously, but it is a testament to the fact that SRD and that model and the open licensing has been forged by the hammer of 25 years of open licensing. That
Mhm.
they were like, oh, we can just put this into Creative Commons, but also to a certain extent, it was the people, very pointedly, I'm saying this, the people that were at WotC at the time
Mm.
knew that this was the only way to ensure that the community would be taken care of in the event they weren't at WotC in the future.
Sure. Yeah, future proofing, right?
Yeah,
You can do and say you're gonna do whatever you want while you're there, while you're in
yeah,
control, but, nothing is forever. You could be fired, let go, win the lottery tomorrow,
yeah.
and then, yeah,
At
that's
the end
it.
of the day, it's not even necessarily the lawyers at WotC that are making the policy decisions. In fact, very rarely does the lawyer get to direct policy. The lawyer is typically told, "Hey, this is what we want to do. Make it happen,"
Mhm.
and then they follow those guidelines and those sets of rules. So, I'm friends with the lawyers over at WotC at this point, and they have very little control over like the direction that the company goes in. So I
Mm.
would say that this move is something that they even potentially signed off on because it allows them to stand by their work and know that, nobody's going to tamper with it in the future.
So, we've got a couple of licenses, and part of this, I'm sure if you're clued into the TTRPG space, you'll know that there's been some ruffling of feathers regarding licensing
Weird.
recently, but I really want to focus on kind of three main groups, I guess we'll say, and that would
Mhm.
be the we kind of have done the OGL to death at this point, but like the putting the SRD into the Creative Commons, what that is, Paizo's Orc license, which was spun out of the OGL situation. They kind of worked with Zora Law and a bunch of others to make the Orc license,
Right.
which is the open RPG creative license, which is
Mhm.
designed to was again at the time was an effort to get around or to not have run into the same issues that was run into with the
Right.
OGL. that was before WotC put it into the SRD. And then the other main one here is the Darrington Press license. And I don't remember.
Yeah, the community license, community gaming license,
Yeah.
CGL.
And then we also have a handful of questions that you guys had submitted a while back regarding when I had put out the post that we were going to make this video. And I guess to a lesser extent, we're also going to touch on the Wizards of the Coast fan content policy.
Yeah, you said some questions that other people submitted. I also wanted to chime in with some questions that I wish they had submitted too.
Okay,
So,
great. Yeah. Well, listen, we
yeah,
want to make sure we touch on all this. So, I guess we'll start with the well, again, like I said, we've kind of touched on the OGL enough, but that started as a license back in the 3.5 days, and that was essentially to which did not there was nothing like that prior, was my
no,
understanding. And due to sort of the explosion of popularity again in Wizards taking over from TSR,
right,
had said, we want you, and it didn't come out right away, right at the start
no,
of third. It was in the course of the process there. They said, we want you, if you want to make your own content using our rule set and our game, Dungeons and Dragons third or 3.5, we want you to be able to, you can't have everything.
yeah,
You can have this curated list of things and you can make your own content. And if you want, you can even sell it for a profit and we won't go after you. No cease and desist, no copyright strikes, none of that kind of stuff. And that was, from my understanding from talking to some of the folks that were behind that decision, that was the goal, was to
right.
empower people to make money creating for D&D in their own way.
Yeah. The year is 2000. D&D is exploding, and in lieu of massively expanding and hiring staff going into the new millennium, they elected to outsource their projects and say, listen, you want this content, you go write it. And they knew that the community would adopt it at that point. And so it was more of a, instead of carefully stewarding this, let's put something out there to allow people to create their own works and to create an open model. And at this point, open licensing was a thing. Like, it wasn't unknown, but it hadn't nearly been adopted to the extent that it has now. And it was kind of a pioneering move. But also, it's really important as we go through this discussion to keep in mind that D&D had been around for almost 25 years at this
Yeah.
point, when this initial open license was put up. And so at the time, Wizards knew what they had acquired through in TSR and in the D&D properties. And they knew what it was, what it wasn't, what they had, what capabilities they had to expand and grow upon it. And so it was much easier to put something into the openness because you know what you're putting out there and you can expect kind of what you might see coming back.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even think about it from that perspective, that there'd been 25 years of Dungeons and Dragons and there was no open creation. Now, granted, it was a little more Wild Wild West in that time frame.
Right.
Like, you could reach out to Gary Gygax and be like, "Hey, Gary, can I do
Yeah.
this?" And he'd be like, "Okay." Like,
You're
you know,
like, shh, don't tell Dave, but yeah.
yeah. So this kind of persisted for the entirety of third edition and beyond, which is the trick on this is honestly the fact we're going to be talking about the Orc license only exists because of the open game license and Pathfinder and Paizo's capability to spin off with the open game license to make Pathfinder first edition
Right.
only exists because of the open game license for third edition.
Right.
And we're going to really touch on the game content policy or game license or whatever it was that came out for fourth edition. Nobody liked that.
No, we all hated that. That thing, as far as we're concerned, that thing didn't exist.
And then fifth edition rolled out in 2014. And even then, it was about a year, maybe two, before the updated version of the open game license that had existed until 2023. That had been in there was a time period, I guess people probably, a lot of folks came in several years into 5e.
Yeah.
But there was about a year and a half, 2 years where you couldn't legally create things for 5e till the OGL came out.
Well, yeah, till the SRD was put into the
Correct.
OGL.
Yes, correct.
And so once the 5th edition SRD was officially put out, that's when people really started making content for 5th edition. And at this point in like 2016-ish, that's when we have the explosion of content, because now all of a sudden you have new access. You have platforms like Patreon, you have platforms like Kickstarter, you have Reddit, you have all of these. We've gone from listservs to forums. And when we say forums, we mean like readily accessible interactive forums that a layperson has an app on their iPad to access.
Mhm.
And that is really, I think, behind some of the pervasion of 5th edition's adoption, is because the OGL allowed people to freely and quickly create and share what's on their brain in a cost efficient manner for everybody. It allows you to go beyond, oh, I published this and I can email it out to a bunch of my friends, to, hey, I put this up on the internet. This is on my Facebook group, ready to go. And I think that was a game changer.
Also, 2016 would have been Critical Role had been out for about a year.
Hmm.
2016 also marked the launch of the Dungeon Masters Guild website. That was
Yeah.
also launched then. Previously, you'd be looking at, whatever success you could find on Drive-Through RPG. But in this time frame, a lot of the creators that you may know in the space
Hmm.
started to develop content that started to kind of get legs behind it. While
Yeah.
Kobold Press had existed during the previous iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, it wasn't until I gotta say it's probably around that 2016 timeframe that the
Yeah.
Tome of Beasts 1 was launched,
Hmm.
and it was extremely successful, and it wasn't somebody in their office or their bedroom, it was a company making a product looking to be published. They were brought on to, like, some of the Wizards of the Coast podcasts and stuff. There was
Yeah.
marketing too behind this,
Hmm.
so we start to see the benefits of the open game license.
Right, exactly. And what you see in it's specifically, I think it was January 2016, was when SRD 5 point, I think it was 5.1,
Yeah.
was put into that OGL body of work. And so this is the first time we have updated mechanics going into the OGL, I think, since 3.5.
Mhm.
And so that is why also that proliferation continued. And it also revitalized the OGL as a concept as well. I'll tell you, from the legal perspective, this is a nightmare.
Sure, I can imagine.
New and emerging technology is the focus of our law firm, in interactive entertainment. Um, and it is the proliferation of new technology meeting old licensing
Mm,
that is exactly what we try and future proof in our contracts and our agreements, etc. Which is why when you draft a license, you don't anticipate it's going to last this long. At this point, the OGL hadn't been updated since 2000, so it had been around for 16 years. No license is necessarily intended to last that long in the public with changing technology. And
sure.
so it presented new and unique problems for Wizards, that's part of the reason why they tried to address it in the OGL rewrites in 2022 and 3.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that as a 16-year standing license,
Yeah.
and if you think about the changes in technology from 2000 to 2016, I mean, we could go into it in detail, but, like, probably one of the biggest things that is social media
Yeah.
as a whole didn't
Right.
exist in
Mhm.
2000. There
Right.
was no YouTube, there was no Twitch, there was no social media of any kind,
Mhm.
so people could share ideas too. Right.
Right.
So this information is exploding everywhere, which then obviously can lead to where we're at with this, why we want to change it. We go through the entire OGL fiasco.
Right.
Ultimately, we, the creators and the fans of the content, win in that it's put in the Creative Commons CC BY 4.0
Correct.
license,
Yeah.
which, again, we don't need to go in great detail, but for people who may have missed any of the previous things, what does this means that it's ours now and they can't change it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Creative Commons is a non-specific license that's out there in the world that's really for any kind of creative work. It's not tailored to our community, to our industry, etc. And it's the key parts of it are that it's irrevocable once it's granted. The requirements are that you can basically use it for commercial purposes. All you have to do is provide the required attribution that is
Mhm.
identified by the creator. It's broad and universal. It's non-specific. And basically what it does is it says, hey, this is an open license. All you got to do is slap this attribution on it. You're good to go. It's effectively what the OGL is, except it's less restrictive than the OGL.
Mhm.
And therefore it's an overcorrection, I think, at the time. And honestly, I do kind of like that overcorrection, because at the time when they did this in 2023 and put it into the Creative Commons, they had been trying to restrict everything, obviously, with the OGL 1.1 and then the subsequent edition 1.2. Wizards of the Coast was because of Papa Hasbro,
Mm.
trying to gain more control over the use of its IP and restrict the cottage industry that had popped up at the time. So that rubber band snapped.
Sure.
They tried to enact too much control, put too much pressure on the community. We won, and they overcorrected back into Creative Commons. But D&D is unique, especially the SRD 5.1 is unique in their use of the Creative Commons, in that by this point we have almost 50 years of
Mhm.
D&D. So it is even more of a calculation of, oh, we know what this is. We definitely know what we're going to get back. Some of it might be bad. We might have some hate groups use our work, but that's not going to be adopted by the community.
Right.
So
And
let's
that
put
was
it
some
out
of
there.
the perceived
Yeah,
changes to the OGL was, falsified or not. And, obviously you can't account for everything, but that's the way everything exists in any
right,
content, in any universe. You can't control for every,
right,
outlier. But that was some of their, oh no, we're doing this because we're the good guys. That was one of the
right,
concepts. And yeah, it's now available publicly. And then we even got an update to the 5.1 with the
right.
5.2 and the 5.2.1 this year, which is kind of crazy to think about. They've done all this big effort to launch 2024 as this brand new rule set update,
Right.
even though they don't want to call it a new edition. They don't want to call it a half edition, whatever however you feel about that.
Yeah.
It's an improvement in my opinion, and it fixes a lot of issues. They didn't have to make that free either.
No.
They coulda just stuck with, "Hey, you won, you got what you wanted," and
And
they coulda just said, "If you wanna create with that, you can. If you wanna use the new stuff, you need to enter into this license, or you need to enter into only publishing on the DMs Guild, so we get our cut out of it." And to their credit, they said, "No, you know what? We want
mhm,
you to make the game you wanna play.
yeah.
You get to choose. You wanna make it in 2014? Fine. You wanna make it in 2024? Also fine. You wanna do both? You could do that too."
Yeah. And to that end, like, we saw where 2014 rule set came out, it didn't go into the OGL for 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
And
Oh,
now
yeah.
in 5.2.1, 5.2 and 5.2.1, the 2024 rule set gets added to the SRD within months.
Yeah, about 2 to 3 months. I remember it was a slow roll too, right? So, we didn't
Right.
have the monster manual officially in people's hands till February of this year, 2025.
25. Yeah.
We had this in the SRD, or the SRD in Creative Commons in May of
Yeah.
2025.
So overall, to give credit where credit's due, WotC did take that feedback well. Now,
Mm,
candidly, except for the amazing legal team, and I will love them at this point till the day I die, because they're fantastic people there. Um, Most of the people that we were speaking to and talking to last
mm.
Gen Con as they're planning this rollout aren't there anymore.
I'd say categorically none of them are.
Yeah. Without going specifically into person by person, Um, you recall, you and I were at the Gen Con event on day 0, where
Mhm.
they rolled out, they had the press event. None of those people are
Yeah,
there
they're all
anymore.
gone.
So going forward, I don't know what this is going to look like. So I'm glad that this stuff went in while the old team was there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. I've lamented it to some extent, and lament is the wrong word. It's making it sound a little bit more dire than it is.
I'd rather, but to that extent, though, I'd rather for better or for worse, for the devil I know rather than the devil I don't.
Correct. We're also at the point where I've said it. I haven't seen a lot of other creators speak openly about it, but you and I can talk candidly for this. We used to get regular communications from that team, whether that was for upcoming book releases, for review
Yeah,
purposes, for events to discuss the future of the game. And with that team that we knew now all having been either let go or moved on, it's gone dark.
it's a black hole. I
We
mean,
just nothing.
you and I send emails prior to events. I CC you on them, and
Yeah.
we haven't gotten anything back.
Nope.
I will say, and this is not the video for it, but canonically, letting go of Dixon Dubois was one of the worst things Wizards of the Coast could have done in the 2020s. I
Correct.
think looking back on it, it is one of the biggest mistakes that organization has made.
I agree. Again, like you said, not the content for this video, but we're not. The biggest thing we wanted during the OGL was transparency.
Yeah.
And you gave us a lot of this by giving us roadmaps and letting us
Yep.
know what your content policy or your content release schedule rather is going to be for the year, and
Yeah.
having open, relatively quick feedback from your team to creators to say, hey, this is okay, this is not okay. Yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that. And now, I've had one or two small communications, but it's now I used to get from a person. Now it's from the team.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess we did also in a kind of more shadow stealth win, got this license in and kind of approved while the team that we know for a fact did care about this was still there.
Yeah, which
Be-
is good.
Yeah. So and who knows what the future will bring? We don't. But we're galvanized against any kind of future tampering, at least with 2024.
Right.
So, we talked about this in other videos, but all you need to do essentially is drop about a 2-sentence line, the proper listed attribution into your document, and that's all you need to publish under Wizards of the Coast, either 5.1 or 5.2.
Provided you're only using what's in the SRD. So
Correct.
make sure you check your work. If you suddenly put like a beholder in there, that's not in there.
Correct.
So
Yes, good point. Yeah. Same
yeah,
thing. Probably I'd say the biggest thing you'll need to keep an eye on is spells. Just as
right.
as a creator myself who has navigated this a handful of times, it's very easy to be like, "Oh, I want to give my new subclass this spell," and
Right.
then, "Oh, it's not in there. Shit. Oh, no, I have to figure something else out," But
Ah,
that's just, just to be mindful of that.
ball of fire.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, there are people that do that. They toe that line. But anyway, let's talk before we move on to the other licenses, just while we're here on the WotC kind of spectrum. Let's talk fan content policy,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
this is old, and it hasn't been updated in a minute,
Nope.
and people like to, and Noah and I, as a form of entertainment for ourselves, send each other back and forth links to Reddit threads where people will try to justify anything they
Mm-hmm.
want, whether legally questionable or exceptionally illegally questionable, by using the fan content policy as a sort of umbrella to protect them from everything.
Yeah.
Or they'll try to say it's Creative Commons is another one that they'll also try to
Woohoo.
use to just avoid any. And I feel like to some degree, the way people are going about this, like, you have to realize that if you're having to question whether or not this is the right play, you probably have answered your question already.
Yeah. If it's not obvious, then you probably shouldn't do it. I will tell you, this falls squarely into I wish the one of the questions I wish people were asking. Don't rely on the fan content policy for your adventures, your classes, your homebrew content.
Mm,
Don't. It's not what it's for. The fan content policy specifically refers to, I got it up here. Give me a quick second.
mhm.
The fan content policy specifically refers to fan art, videos, podcasts, blogs, websites, streaming content, tattoos, altars to your cleric's deity, etc. It does not say anything about classes, races, adventures. It is what is covered under the fan content policy is fan art and comics. It includes videos and streaming content, such as like actual plays, lore breakdowns, that kind of thing. Podcasts like the Forgotten Pats podcast, which you should all download right now. We're almost done with the campaign too. Blogs or websites, such as, showcasing fan-made content. Cosplay, tattoos, thank God, because you can't get rid of them. Or thematic creations like altars and dice towers, that kind of stuff. What it does not cover: homebrew classes, races, adventures, source books, or anything really focused around mechanics.
The game itself.
Yeah. So if it's content, it's covered by the fan content policy. If it's mechanics, it's not. That has to go with the license.
Okay.
And I understand why people are confused, because the license was not very well written, the fan content policy.
Okay.
There is ambiguity. But, and I have this on the best authority I could possibly get it from, read between the lines, it specifically does not cover the same things as what the OGL and the Creative Commons cover, the SRD.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can see. Well, also, this is the other reason why I think personally is there's no attribution required of any kind for the fan content policy. So that is why you might see, if you were to just type in D&D 5e homebrew in Google and go and look up by the image search, you're going to see a lot of images of people with art, with the very 5e art style, with the kind of paint splatters, and it'll have whatever their homebrew subclass, race, whatever it might be, species, feat, whatever. And then a lot of the time, they'll put in the bottom corner an attribution that says this is in accordance to the D&D fan content policy. That means nothing.
It's important to include because the fan content policy does say, this is unofficial. You have to make sure it's unofficial fan content, permitted under the fan content policy, not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the material are property Wizards of the Coast, and then the copyright disclaimer. You do have to include something like that. But they specifically say don't use their logos or trademarks.
Right.
They specifically say don't mess with our existing legal notices. So if you use something that has a copyright disclaimer, don't remove it. Try not to tie us in with your stuff. But if you use our stuff, make sure you put our copyright disclaimer.
Right. But what my point is, a lot of the things that we're talking about, those are inherently mechanical.
Right.
Which means putting an attribution that this is part of the fan content policy isn't protecting you the way you think it's protecting you.
No, it's not. So if someone goes out and puts out the homebrew orange wizard, class, don't know where I got that from.
No.
And they put fan content policy. No, it's not.
Right.
At all.
Now, dressing up like an orange wizard from Dungeons and Dragons, that is fan content policy.
Right.
Because it is a cosplay, it is a character that I have made. Now here's a question for you. If I were to, because it doesn't necessarily have to be, because it's like lore of the character, but like, let's say I were to write a novel about this orange wizard character. And I'm not obviously publishing this under Wizards of the Coast because I don't have that deal, but I am a wizard and we're kind of following wizardly tropes that are inspired from a character from Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking mechanics, I'm talking lore. Would I even need to do anything? I mean, I feel like it covers me to be safe to put something about the fan content policy.
The question really falls into, are you incorporating other D&D IP? Or Wizards IP in the book? If so, yes. And also, if so, you can't sell it, because one of the things that the Wizards fan content policy expressly says is that you have to offer it for free. And then they spelled the word free, which I thought was really funny. FREE. And
this is very 2016 Wizards. Right?
Very 2016 Wizards. And so, 2017 specifically.
Sure, sorry.
And so no, that you would have to, if you use Wizards IP, you need to disclose and you can't sell it if you're using the fan content policy, but you can't use that for mechanical stuff.
Okay, so taking that a step further, then
Mhm.
let's say I write a book about how to be a dungeon master.
Mhm.
Not like not recycling the Dungeon Master's Guide, but there's a countless amounts of books out there about how to be a better DM, how to, like Matt Colville's whole channel was based around like
Yeah,
this whole kind of a thing. So if I were to make a book about how to be a better dungeon master, how to create interesting D&D encounters, things like that. Now, maybe I'm referencing D&D in some way. I'm not
right.
talking mechanics here. I'm not talking challenge rating. I'm not talking how to build a deadly encounter versus a mild encounter. I'm not talking about it mechanically. I'm talking about it creatively, about how to engage your players better in story, how to describe combat in
Right.
a way that makes it interesting. I'm very clearly, this from the way I've written the book or the way I've called it.
Yeah,
Like
you're
I'm talking
referencing
about
D&D.
D&D,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I'm not talking mechanics. I'm talking in the ethereal about design of combat. Now, this could easily have just been applied to a movie, right? In the same concept, like you could read
Right.
my book and use it to write a better combat encounter for a film you're making. But I'm talking about the content, but
It
I'm not
comes
talking mechanics.
it comes down as specifically as this. And this is where I get to use my favorite legal phrase.
Mm.
It all depends.
Okay.
IAD, as we say. Um, it comes down as specifically as the exact wording you're using. Um, there's no exact information advice that I can give you on this without actually reading this potential book. Now, for example, if in the book you refer to yourself as the dungeon master
Mm.
or dungeon masters doing things, more likely than not implicate Wizards IP. And if
Okay.
you're going to sell the book, then you would need to not do that because it wouldn't be covered under the SRD. It would be covered under the fan content policy, which means you have to offer it for free.
So if
Now,
I was how to be a better game master.
exactly. If you said how to be a better game master and you talked about turn, but you didn't talk about initiative, if you talked about combat order instead of initiative
I
order,
see.
like
So
that kind of thing,
we're
you need to
interesting.
denature it a little bit and break it down into its root parts, which honestly, candidly, I think everybody should do, regardless of whether or not they're trying to avail themselves of these IPs specifically or get into a specific game because the more broad your work is, the more appeal it potentially can have.
Yeah, it's
Um,
agnostic.
yeah, exactly. The more agnostic it is, the better off you are. So I'd recommend that either way. But
Okay.
yeah, no, what you're describing is more likely than not going to run afoul of something unless you denature it completely.
So, last bit on this before we move on to another license, because this is just an interesting one. Let's say which I don't believe WotC holds a copyright on Dragon Master, right?
I don't think they do.
So if
Well,
I,
there's two things there. One, do you mean the trademark or the copyright? Because the trademark
well,
is,
I don't think they have either. If is my
yeah, I don't
point.
think they have either.
So
Yeah,
if I were to do that, go through the process and get Dragon Master copyrighted,
DM.
DM. So I write at the beginning of my book, how to be a better dragon master, and then throughout the adventure of this or the writing of this source book that I've made, I say, going forward, we're going to shorten dragon master to DM. And we've established what it means, but I'm towing a very dangerous line. I feel like, but I put you on the spot on this one, but I'm just curious what your thoughts
I
are.
mean, my gut reaction,
Yeah, sure.
my off the cuff reaction, and let me know what you think in the comments. I guess
Hmm.
chat. Is you actually probably be fine.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it all comes down to the team you have defending yourself,
Yeah,
and
the only reason I think you might not be fine is because you use the term dragon, which is just the opposite of dungeon.
yeah, but they
And
don't own
dungeons,
dragon.
it's the connection. So it's Dungeons and Dragons, and then Dungeon versus Dragon Master. I think if you did like
Divine Master.
Divine
Made a
Master,
DM, yeah.
something like that. Yeah, yeah, Divine
Okay.
Master. That'd be much better.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that was just a fun little thought experiment that
Yeah,
I
no, I
come up
liked it.
with.
That was good.
Okay. So I think we've talked enough about what the OGL is, what the Creative Commons SRD is, and I think we've kind of touched as much as we can on the fan content policy because really what it needs to be done is it needs to be updated.
It needs to be updated.
When it was made, Critical Role barely existed. Because that's also technically, right, that's fan content policy because it's a
Oh,
live
yeah.
play, right?
Yeah, so Critical Role is covered under the fan content policy. And that's what it is. It's a live play, it's an actual play. And so that absolutely correct. And so that's why they were able to do it. Now, the fan content policy does allow you to make use of um like monetization tools for podcast and live plays as long as it's not hidden behind a paywall. So for example, it couldn't be exclusive Patreon content, which is why you should never put your D&D content behind a paywall. So if you are like doing like a special session, don't put it behind a paywall. But you can monetize it if it's inherent to the platform and people don't have to pay to get it.
So if I wanted to release my DM notes for a session or my notes as a player for a session on
Mhm.
Patreon, I'm not releasing the content's for free on YouTube or Twitch, but like behind the scenes stuff is behind a paywall. That's okay.
In theory, it depends
Ooh,
on again,
okay.
it's down to the denaturing of it. So, one common practice that I see is, um, creators putting up, like, the level 1 character sheets, for their podcast characters.
Sure.
Um, Theoretically,
Can't do that.
you can't do that.
It's mechanics.
Now, at the same time, though, um,
But the character was a fan creation.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's weird. So yeah, the fan creation, you can't put behind a paywall. The mechanics, you can. And so it's kind of up in the air. Now that said, I don't see wizards going after people for doing it. I think that that's too small fish. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what?
Um,
Let's pause on that for a second because I have seen this in comments on our other videos and things, and
yeah,
I just want to address this. There are so many people out there that their mentality is, I'm not gonna put attributions on my things I put out for free on the internet because I'm putting it out for free. I'm not making any money on it.
which is why.
Well, so I mean, whether they read the fan content policy or otherwise, their thought, and I know because I've done things with other companies, and you run into the cease and desist, and whatever it is, because you're making money on content that's not yours, whether that's logos or whatever it is, right? But they're like, I'm not making any profit. This has never been for profit. It doesn't exist in any profit, money making in any way. I'm a fan of the game. I love this thing. I want to put it out there on the internet for people to just use in their game for fun because I had fun with it. I want you to have fun with it too. So put it out there for free. They think that that immediately, in theory, protects them from any legal backlash. And they also, those same people seem to fall into the group that, well, they won't come after me because I'm me. I'm small time. I've got no following. And just to let the record show and set everybody straight here, if they wanted to, they could. Am
Yeah,
I
they could. And as someone who has done enforcement actions like that, yeah, sure. My clients that ask me to do that kind of stuff don't go after the smaller fish only.
right?
They'll go after a school of fish. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And there certainly is a school of fish out there right now that are not properly attributing and are not properly following up that stuff. And all I would have to do as counsel is just copy and paste the letter and swap out the names.
And
And
you'd be well within your legal right to do so.
well
And if
within.
they wanted to just be like, well, you know what? Today's D&D 5e homebrew Reddit day.
Yep.
Start at the top and just work our way down and we're getting
Yeah.
our pound of flesh.
Yeah.
And
That's the thing.
what would happen? I mean, I know it might be specific to the situation. I mean, I guess at the very least it'd be taken down, right?
It'll be takedowns probably. I mean, that's the thing is it really depends on if it's falling under a copyright violation or how they're approaching it.
Mm.
Trademark, copyright, product identity, whatever it is. Usually, it's probably going to be copyright, so you'd probably avail yourself of the DMCA if you're WotC. to require a takedown. Now,
Mhm.
copyright infringement's pretty severe in terms of penalties. At its worst, if you're infringing on a copyright that has been registered and you intentionally infringed on it, and they can show bad faith, for example, then it's potentially 150K per infringement, which per infringement is not specifically defined, which means it could be per download or
Right.
per post.
Yeah, and you can't even track some of that.
Yeah,
Could it be multiple times within the document? Like, let's say
yeah,
oh, so
absolutely. It's per instance.
okay, so if I have one subclass that I put out and
Mhm.
I reference 3 spells that aren't, let's say, just for the sake of it, that aren't in the SRD, but
Yeah,
I'm not publishing it, so I'm not let me rephrase, I'm not selling it, so
right.
it's fine. I could be looking at, $450,000 worth of fines because I used 3 things that they didn't like in a document.
$450,000 worth of fines per person that downloaded it or saved it,
Oh,
if
Jesus.
that's
Okay.
trackable.
Okay. Gotcha. So, and I guess so that also putting it out on the internet in a place where people can access it is publishing it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
consider that, right? People think like publishing means I put it out in a formal way. If it's on the internet and it's viewable by someone, and as we know, if it's out there, it's there forever. You have now published your content. Whether or not you did that with the intention of making money, that's non that's not important to this scenario.
Sending it to your homie on Discord is publishing it,
Is publishing it. Okay.
even if it's a private Discord server.
Okay. Again, I'm not trying to scare people. The goal isn't here to fearmonger or get people
Oh,
in a
no, no,
bad
no, no,
way,
no.
but I want you to do what you can to protect yourselves. Because yeah, you're right. Right now, probably Wizards of the Coast isn't gonna go after, 10,000 people on their Reddit posts, but that's right now,
I
you know?
am here to scare you.
Okay, go ahead, scare
The
'em.
yeah, listen, it's never happened before until it happens to you.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we already talked about too, the changing of the team, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know what Hasbro has planned for the future. But we know that if you put yourself with the Creative Commons attribution, you are wholly protected. It is one line.
Can we get a shirt? This and I should be the one answering this question, so don't do this legally, but I wanna make a shirt that is the Hasbro, like, scripted out, but instead of bro, it says been, so it's has been,
Mm, I like
because
it.
they're so outdated in the legal approach to everything.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, man.
All right. I think we've covered as much as we can for that. Let's
Yeah, we've
talk.
beat that horse to death
Yeah,
and then rode
it
it
is.
and then beat it to death again.
Yeah. Let's talk Orc license.
Yeah, sure, I'm in.
Because I think were you involved, or maybe you can't say, I don't
Yeah,
know.
so I absolutely can say I was involved in the crafting of the orc license. We were one of the law firms that Azora worked with and met with regularly to discuss what looked good, what didn't look, the feedback, how could this be interpreted? Because we were as part of Ground Zero for OGL, and
Right.
so they brought us in pretty early on that, and kudos to the team at Azora. I really love those guys. They did a really great job doing the drafts, running it past people, talking to stakeholders. I think they did a fantastic job.
Okay. So if I want to publish content under the Orc license, it's not limited to publishing for Pathfinder. It's designed to be an open
Right.
license for creators to use to create mechanical content in a separate from Wizards of the Coast arena. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, it's unlike the Creative Commons. This one is specific to RPG mechanics and systems, tabletop RPG mechanics and systems. Well, I would actually say RPG,
Okay.
because in theory you could use it for non-tabletop stuff.
Typical
Um,
games or whatever.
yeah, the purpose of it was to give the community another open licensing framework that was both irrevocable and perpetual, which were two of the main problems we had with
Yes.
the OGL 1.1 and 1.2. And also to ensure that it was stewarded by a neutral third party. So, for example, the Creative Commons was stewarded by the Creative Commons organization. They
Mhm.
take care of it, they enforce it, etc. We wanted to have governance lie within a neutral third party. That has landed with Azora Law as that quote unquote neutral third party, which like I just said, I love those guys. I don't know that they're 100% neutral because they do represent interested parties.
Sure.
So, but I think they're as close to it as you're going to get right now.
Okay.
Um, the scope obviously includes game mechanics, rules, frameworks, etc. Allows commercial use. What's interesting is the licensor under the orc license doesn't have to require attribution,
Okay.
but they can, and most people do. It's just a natural thing. So it's commercial use is allowed. Attributions, if it's required by the licensor, is required. But yeah, it was built as a publisher safe alternative to the OGL in the event that the OGL didn't go the way that we wanted it to. And it's still there as
Hmm.
a publisher safe alternative. I think that, there's been a lot of discourse about whether or not, now that the Creative Commons exists, why should the orc exist? Um,
I
and
mean, I'm curious.
that's a great question. The Creative Commons is not bespoke for our community, but it
Okay.
does serve our purposes. I think that the orc is incredibly important as a guideline for publishers going forward,
Mhm.
so that it's Creative Commons or nothing. There is a step down, which is publisher friendly and
Hmm.
specific to our industry.
Okay. And so realistically, if I wanted to, I guess my interpretation, which could be, it's not probably not entirely correct, right? If I wanted to
Yeah.
publish D&D 5e content, whether that's 2014 or 2024, I'm going to use the Creative Commons license because it's what it's geared for.
Yeah, honestly, I have a lot of clients saying, "Why would I use the OGL that's in Creative Commons?" Because you like the letters OGL
Mm.
is my answer. So,
And if I wanted to, but let's say I wanted to make Call of Cthulhu content, I could use the Orc license for that.
assuming that they put it
Assuming
in there.
that
Yeah, yeah.
Chaosium is on board with the Orc license.
Yeah,
Yeah.
assuming Chaosium is on board, then or the orc license is compatible. Now, Chaosium could also avail themselves of the Creative Commons as well. So I
Correct.
will actually quickly amend what I just said. You would use the OGL if you want to have some backwards compatibility as well,
Okay.
because there's certain aspects to like crossover between the SRDs and what's been published under the same license. So
Yeah, for the most part, it looks like there is that update document, which is like changing the dragon orb to whatever, some
yeah,
silly stuff, and it's minor things. Um,
it's to remove protected identity stuff.
and you would also use the OGL if you wanted to create 3.5 content for
Exactly.
sale
Yeah.
because you have to. You don't have another option now. They
Yeah.
have told us in the past they were going to focus on, if they could, at some point, putting all older editions of Dungeons and Dragons in Creative Commons, but they want to take the time to comb through that to make sure they're not going to accidentally drop things like Strahd von Zarovich into Creative Commons to now have that name be freely available for usage in whatever way you see fit.
Yeah,
Um,
my favorite usage is my gnome. So
yeah. um, all right. So if the company that, or the game system you want to make for, is in support of the orc license, then you could publish under that, because obviously if it's not D&D, you don't necessarily want to use Creative Commons because it
yeah,
doesn't fit. It's a different system entirely. Okay. So that covers the orc license. Now, if I wanted to know whether or not the company or the game system I want to create for is using is on board, I guess, with the orc license, what's the best? Do you know the best way to figure that out? Is it through that company, or is it like the orc website, or?
it's through the company because the company is going to tell you what they've adopted
Okay.
and what their licensing frameworks are. It's on the company to tell you that they're a licensor under the org or the Creative Commons, etc.
Okay.
Because they have to take action. They have to take affirmative action to put the stuff into the license
Hmm.
that they want you to use, which requires a certain amount of tailoring on their part, hopefully. And so they don't just give away the farm, so to
Sure.
speak. There's nothing wrong with that. Most companies don't want to do that.
Gotcha.
So, well, now here's what's interesting. You can actually put stuff in both the org and Creative Commons.
And why would I want to do that?
Because typically if you wanted to be more tailored to the community, but you also wanted to potentially hit a more maximum global audience, then you could potentially do. Also, it increases the visibility for interoperability between systems
Sure.
if you put in a both. So I think that you could use both. Also, put in both and allow people to publish under either, then it builds your community trust. So
Yeah.
there's candidly not a ton of like, this is the legal reason why you would do both, but it's more of a community reason. It's more of a policy reason.
Okay. And that's what our friends over at Cobalt Press have done more recently with the Black Flag role playing document,
Yeah.
the Tales of the Valiant sort of SRD, if you will, has it been published under Creative Commons as well as under the work license. So you do have that capability to use either if you
Yeah.
prefer.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, the big one,
The scuttlebutt.
the scuttlebutt indeed. The Darrington Press Community
CGL.
CGL. This is a license for you to create content for Darrington Press products, or is it just Daggerheart?
It's a Darrington Press license, but Daggerheart is what it is in it currently.
So
Let me pull up.
not Candela Obscura at the moment.
Yeah, I might include Candela. Let me pull it up real quick. Give me a quick second.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And what's while Noah, I'll vamp here while Noah kind of pulls that up. This is a license again with the intention to allow you to create your own content within the sounds like maybe specifically the Dagger Heart system for the purposes potentially for you to monetize this like you would have under the OGL previously or the SRD.
yeah,
But it is not decidedly not in Creative Commons,
right.
which
Now,
leads to some things.
it's led to a little bit of scuttlebutt, and honestly, I don't think it's deserved.
Okay.
I think that, well, first of all, just to clarify, the content under the Darrington Press Community Gaming License is content released by Darrington Press or its related companies, such as Critical Role Productions or Gilmore's Glorious Goods LLC, in any published works. So take a look at that. But it's basically applicable to what they put out there.
Okay.
Um, Here is my take on this. And
Yeah.
this is a take that I've seen echoed by some of your colleagues as well,
Mm-hmm.
um, such as Bob Worldbuilder and a few others. There's lot on the internet that has much ado about nothing with this right
Sure.
now. This is not an open license, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is intended to be, based on
Okay.
some signals that we've gotten from the Daggerheart team, especially through this license. I don't think that this is intended to be an open license, nor do I think that the community is obligated to receive an open license to Daggerheart content.
Okay.
And let me tell you why.
Sure.
One, we base our open licensing model on D&D, obviously. That's where it got introduced to us. Keep in mind, D&D was almost a quarter of a century old
Mm-hmm.
when the open gaming license was finally put in. D&D knew what it was, as you and I talked about earlier in this video.
Mm-hmm.
Daggerheart, as of this video, is barely 50 days old.
Yeah.
And so they've invested so much into this creation that they've put out into the world. It's a beautiful game. They've invested so much, they don't know what the community has out there, and they don't know what they have to put back out. So whereas when D&D was put into an open license, you knew what the bounds and edges of it were typically, and they could reasonably expect what they get back. Daggerheart has no idea.
Mm.
And to that extent, it makes perfect sense that instead of saying, hey, everybody jump in the sandbox, they have like a gate on the sandbox a little bit to make sure you're not going to like bring a knife in.
Sure.
Because Wizards has had to deal with, not Wizards, Critical Role specifically being related to Daring Press, has had to deal with some very highly public lawsuits and disputes, including around fan content that they were accused of stealing and stuff like that. Um, I think that it is fair to say that they're not obligated to put this into an open licensing framework. I do think that putting it into an open licensing framework is one way that they can ensure it will be widely adopted by
Mhm.
third-party writers and the creatives on the planet, because that open licensing framework would give those folks the ability and the openness and the reliability of an open license, so they can build upon that. But third-party creators are not entitled to use Daggerheart.
True. I agree, but at the same time, third-party creators in a post-OGL world are very gun shy
Agreed.
of anything that has the capability where there's language or things where things can be changed or reiterated upon, and the only notice you might get is a post on social media that the
Mhm.
license has changed, and if you don't kind of fall within, I'm paraphrasing all of this,
Yeah, of course.
um, you know, if you don't update you'll be in violation of the license. And again, this is all just from my cursory read through of the document and from what
Yeah.
I've kind of learned from going through what we've gone through with the OGL. So I did think about your point about it only being basically not even a 2-month old game at this point. So locking yourself into forever perpetuity of an open license doesn't necessarily give you the room to grow or tweak
Mhm.
or adjust. So I understand that, and I think tempering people's, perception with that will go a long way if people kind of read between those lines and see that. Because I mean, I guess think about it, right, your way. If you had made a game, and you're like, "I want people to be able to put content out in my game because I love my game, and I think I want others to love it too,
Yeah.
but, like, make a decision right now." And it's like, I don't know. But also realize that all the people you wanna make this game were hurt by the last person who tried to do this to them. So they're like, we know we I would imagine prior to 2023, most people didn't even know what Creative Commons licensing was.
Yeah, absolutely. I
But
agree
now
with you. Or
everybody
open
does.
licensing.
You know what
And
I mean?
and to that extent, I 100% agree with you that creators in the third-party creators and writers should be entitled to the license that they want to work under if Daggerheart and Daring Press are saying, "We want you to draft in Creative Ventures for this. Here, community, we're inviting you openly." If they invite you openly, then they should be open.
Right.
Absolutely. My read on this license is that they're not inviting you openly. They want to have an answer to the question of, "Hey, can we create content for Daggerheart?" And then they're saying, "Yes,
But
but we're not ready to fully open the floodgates yet."
yeah, so targeted.
Eh,
I mean, why not then just do targeted closed testing? Why put it out there in the world?
Yeah,
And again, they have the detriment of coming out in a post OGL world.
they
Had
do.
had this been pre OGL, everybody be like, look at Critical Role. Look at how
Yeah,
open they're being. The thinking about like allowing fans to make content on their game. That's so
yeah,
nice of them. We guys have to navigate the waters of what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do.
right.
But in a world post OGL, they're like, well, oh, you're restricting us again. We've
I
been
I
here. We've seen this before. We know how this goes.
I think my biggest criticism of this license is the messaging around it. In that, if you use the word community gaming license, then you're implying that it is for the community.
Community, yeah.
And
Call it a retail gaming license or something, right? If it's
right,
designed for
or like a beta testing gaming license,
yeah,
or like an initial version
limited,
license. Yeah, and then
limited
putting out
gaming license.
a limited gaming license, like putting the word out there saying, "Hey, this is exactly," instead of me having to extrapolate from them
Right.
and based on what they've drafted and the way that they've handled it, um them expressly saying it instead of having me being the lawyer that is technically on the other side of them from reviewing this license on behalf of my clients to say, I think this is what they mean. So be careful. you know, and so to that end, I don't want to ascribe malice or malicious intent to this. Um, do I necessarily think that third party creators should like Hit Point Press, like Cobalt Press, etc., should dive headfirst into creating content for this license? It's up to you if you want to accept the risks, and I can tell you what the risks are. In fact, that's part of the point of this video. So, it's one, it's not an open license. It's not. It has many of the features of an open license, but it's not an open license. It's not interoperable with other licenses, and it can be revoked. Now, it can't be revoked with regard to content that has already been published, but you can be revoked with regard to your ability to use it for planned future content that has not been substantially created already.
What about if I want to update something I've already published?
If you want to update something you've already published, and I'm going to get into that in a second. If you want to update something you've already published and it has been revoked, then you can't.
Okay,
You're stuck with the version that you put out there.
gotcha.
Now, that gets into the CGL in terms of revocability and updating. It can be changed, including to add the worst case scenario, a royalty requirement or a license back to Daggerheart and Darrington Press to use your content. Many of the things that we saw in the OGL, it certainly can. Now, you're not obligated to accept those new terms,
Or you could just
but
walk away if you wanted to.
you would have to walk away, and you wouldn't be able to update your content or publish new versions.
And your content would be you also couldn't reuse that content
Right.
because of the way the license is written currently. My understanding is if I've published it under their license, they don't necessarily own the rights to it, but like they can essentially can they use my content if I've published something?
No,
Okay.
not technically. Now, practically, potentially.
Okay.
This is a worst case scenario kind of thing. But when I say it's a worst case scenario, it's not a worst case scenario that's out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
So what you're referring to is that Darrington, the CGL, I got it right here. It says if Darrington publishes something that's incredibly similar or identical to something that you made using the CGL, then you can't sue them for copyright infringement based on that similarity. So basically, if they put out something that's almost identical to something you already put out using the CGL, you can't go after them.
And they don't have to credit me.
No,
I don't get any royalties.
nothing.
I've signed my rights away to that when I signed up to use the license.
In a good faith world, I'm going to give you both of those. In a good faith world, this is fine. It effectively is saying, hey, Daggerheart has a bunch of creative people on it. The internet is vast. They can't look under every nook and cranny. There's a chance that 1,000 monkeys typing in a room will recreate the works of Shakespeare.
Right.
In a bad faith world, it can absolutely be used to say, oh, I like this idea. Let's create something, put a little new coat of paint on it. This is now mine. And that's what people are scared of because they don't have a protection from that. I get it. And
it is purely the world we are in for what has already happened.
Well, I mean, we just saw it happen with Marathon from Bungie.
Yes, exactly. 100%, the exact same thing happened. But to that point, Bungie got called out exceptionally publicly by everyone and have since now developed a whole new team to scrub all of their content, which they should have done anyway, but regardless. Yeah. And they also, I believe, have paid the artist who did the work that was stolen, which is the best faith move they could do.
Now, let's take that and look at how much money Bungie had to invest in something that the higher-ups probably had no idea happened, and it was implemented by a contractor or an employee that was like, oh, I love this. I saved it in my inspo board.
Yeah.
Darrington Press doesn't have those resources to hire a whole new team to do a whole new clearance, which is why they included it here. I get it from a legal perspective.
It's a safety feature for them.
Yeah, because they've invested probably millions into Daggerheart to create this thing. They don't have the resources of a WotC, of a Bungie, etc. And so they need to put up some guardrails for that. Now, down the road, they might make a more open license. But right now, this is the version we have, where it's saying, hey, it's more in line of like the, hey, if you're a fan on Reddit, make something, man. And if you are a third-party content creator like Kobold Press or Hitpoint Press or Loot Tavern, somebody like that, it's more on the realm of, if you don't like this license, reach out to us, perhaps, to negotiate something specific.
Yeah, all separate, a specific license for you to
Yeah.
make content in your way, rather than just falling under the general thing. So I know you don't know the answer to this because you're not Critical Role, you're not Darrington Press, but why now? Why, we saw it took 2 years for the OGL for 5th edition to come out. It took 25 years for the first one to come out.
Yeah.
Why within 60 days of your game launching in full? Like, I guess it's trying to do the right thing, but also making you look like the bad guy at the same time, like,
Yeah.
we want you to make content. We want to show you that we're gonna be just like everybody else, like the big guys, we're gonna do the thing. Put it
Yeah.
out there for you. But also, we're not the big guys. We don't know what our game is yet. We don't have 50 years. We don't have 25 years like Pathfinder does. We have 60 days and a year's worth of beta content.
Right.
But so I wonder if this is I guess it kind of almost is like a damned if you do, damned if you don't,
It
based on your
really is.
perception. Like, we want to
I
put it out there for you,
mhm.
but we got to keep it close to the chest because we don't know what it's like yet. But we want to look like we're giving the olive branch,
And like I said, I have no idea. I'm
Hmm.
speculating
Sure,
based
this is
on
speculation for sure.
I'm speculating based on my reading of the license and the lack of public messaging about
Mm,
it. And frankly, what I know about the teams from colleagues that know or have worked with them, like nobody's ever said these are, bad people that are out to do bad things.
right, right.
I think that honestly, the reason this license is out there is, as I mentioned earlier, it's to have an answer to the question
Mm-mm.
of, can I make content in this world? And they want to be able to say yes. And I have a feeling they want to be able to unequivocally say yes,
Mm,
but they're not at the point where they can.
gotcha.
Um, and so this is the, yeah, you can. You're welcome. Here, come into the sandbox, bring your toys. I have the right to say, don't bring that Tonka truck in here
Right.
because it's too big for us right now. And giving them a little bit more control as they feel it out. This is truly, honestly, I really don't like the name Community Gaming License. It truly is like a beta testing
Yeah,
license.
it's definitely a perception of what the license is versus what it's supposed to be used for.
Right.
Well, the good news is they own the license, so they can change the name pretty easily if they
And
want to.
they've already changed this license once.
Yeah.
It was published May 19th, and then they published a new version. It's funny because I'm writing an article about this. And they published a new version already.
Yeah.
So, and it was updated to provide for VTTs.
Oh,
So
sure.
the update came out on June 26th.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot more to come from the Daggerheart community
Yeah.
gaming license or
Let me
Press
let
community
me
gaming license.
let me leave with this one thought.
Mhm.
Because critters are a very strong and powerful community.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that I'm very clear here. I don't think that this is a bad move. I
I think it
think
had the best intentions.
I think it has the absolute best intentions. The only real criticism I have of it is the messaging,
Yeah.
the name and the lack of messaging about what the intent was.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that open licensing is for every system. I don't think every system should be in the open license field. I have clients that come to me and say, "Hey, I want an open license." And I'm like, "Why?" And they say, "Because it's the cool thing to do. Well, I want to signal to people that I use it." I'm like, "Well, don't hire me to craft you a bespoke open license.
Right.
Toss in CCBY."
Yeah.
Um, by the way, I'm available to craft open bespoke licenses. Hire me for that. But it's definitely on a case by case basis.
So let me just pull up, and we'll grab some of these questions that have come up on this.
Please.
So, what is the best way for a small one-person independent company to make sure they are sticking to the third-party license of any particular system? Preferably Shadow Dark, which seems pretty easygoing, i.e., how can I get cheap or free, haha, help with parsing the legalese? Cheers from Canada.
Let's see. What is Shadow Dark's license?
Uh, yeah, so I guess the question being, they want to make sure that they're not stepping out of line of what's contained within that license. But I think the crux of this question, which probably would apply to almost all of these, is what's the best way for me to quote get help parsing the legalese of said license?
Hire a lawyer.
Okay.
If you want
Uh,
somebody to parse legalese for you, hire a lawyer. I'll tell you what you don't do. Don't ask ChatGPT, please.
mhm,
It's not because I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about how much money you're gonna have to pay me when it gives you bad advice.
okay. There you go.
To be clear, lawyers are not terribly expensive. Some are, some are not. We offer free consults. We're happy to chat. Always happy to take a look at what you got. If I'm giving you substantive legal advice, I'm probably going to charge you something, a nominal amount. Happy to talk about that ahead of time. But if you are creating content that you want to commercially use, you should have a legal team. If you are doing this for a couple Reddit posts, that's where you got to really look at your cost benefit analysis, and try and parse it on your own if you're not willing to invest that time and money.
so I guess the question is just like any other kind of consult for anything, whether that's a
Yeah,
contractor for things at your home. Quotes are usually free, right?
yeah,
Talk to the person. This is what I'm looking to do. And it might be like, hey, I have this whole, 500-page manifesto that I want to dump in the orc license, or I want to put it in the shadow. I made this for Shadow Dark or whatever it is.
yeah.
Am I within my legal rights based on their license? That's going to be a lot longer and a more substantive legal fee than me saying, hey, can you read this 50-page license or this however 5-page license and explain it to me like I'm five?
Yeah.
That's probably gonna be a less expensive cost, but what's your peace of mind worth,
And
right?
also, at the same time, I'm a woodworker in my free time. I pay for wood, pay for tools. This is your hobby. There's costs involved.
Yeah. If I were to use age-old dragon magazine contributions like Richard Allen Lloyd's Yellow, Orange, and Purple Dragons, I
Oh,
assume credit him should be bare minimum. They're so good, I wouldn't copy exactly, but keep what made those dragons unique, like breath weapons, behavior, and preferred biome. I would make original new looks with a hint of honorable appreciation, though. Dungeon Dad updated them for 5e. I know with his own contributions, I would love to do my own take on them and if possible under Creative Commons. So this is interesting because Dragon Magazine was all freelance,
yeah.
but it was through TSR at the time.
Yeah, and the question is, did the copyright to those transfer to Watsy? And I expect that it did, because it depends. It honestly, woo, this is a complicated answer, and it's because copyright adheres to the author of a work, unless it's a work made for hire. And so the question was, for those magazines, any of the publications that TSR put out at the time, did their contracts appropriately give ownership of the content to TSR, or was it a license to TSR for the publication, or
Mm,
how does that look? And so, truly, the answer to that question requires what we call a clearance, which is to go back and trace the rights. Now, if that's publicly out there somewhere saying this was owned by TSR and transferred to WotC, and then the question becomes, did WotC include that in the SRD? In which case, you're good to go. If they didn't, which I anticipate is the
they
case,
did not.
yeah, then either you can't use it because it's not on the SRD, unless it's for fan content, as previously mentioned, or if it didn't transfer to TSR, then it the rights stayed with the original author, in which case you need to find the original author or their estate in the event that they're dead.
So what do you okay, so thank you for that. That's good information. The question then becomes uh transformative, right? I
Fair
want
use
to
is bullshit.
well, okay, I know that. We know this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me make sure I
Get on
say
your
it.
soapbox, explain fair use.
Fair use is a defense to a lawsuit. If you were relying on fair use for publication of any of your works, then you were doing it wrong. You were admitting, yes, this is infringing, but it's fair use, and most likely, your fair use is not going to be fair use. Very few things are fair use. It's a court determination, and they've really narrowed the scope of what it is. So if you're relying on fair use, or if you're in the comments saying, "Oh, well, that's just fair use," it's not. Insert SpongeBob hand on hip meme right now. It's not fair use. It's not fair use. Stop saying fair use. Forget the words fair use. Please, for the love of God. Okay, continue.
Okay, yeah. The point, and we've said this a couple times, we'll reiterate it one last time. Fair use is a reactive defensive mechanism during you already being in some form of litigation.
You have paid dozens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to get to the point where you can look a judge in the eyes and say fair use.
Yeah, it is not a thing you can use as a shield. It is something it's a first aid kit on a wound that's already festering, right? That's what
Yeah.
fair use is.
The term fair use is why I have this coffee mug.
Yeah. All right. So, I don't know if you work with Josiah Dungeon Dad, but he does a lot of taking old content from Dragon magazines and updating that to 5e.
I want to be Josiah's lawyer.
I mean, yeah. Well, my point being, he's taking old TSR mechanical information
Mm-hmm.
and then updating it to his perception of 5e, but in a video. Is that a gray area? Because that sound like the content of the video is fan content policy, but the mechanics are mechanics, but it's spiraling. I mean, I don't want to get him busted here on YouTube, but you know what I mean?
If you don't want to get him busted here on YouTube, you should stop asking me this
All
question.
right, then we're going to move on.
That's your answer.
All right.
You should leave that in.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. All right. For Creative Commons attributions, do the links posted to the license or creators themselves need to be hot clickable links, or can they be regular text?
If it's possible to have them be hot links, then absolutely. But the requirement at its bare minimum is that it's clickable. It's at least have the link that somebody could type in. So if you're using a format where you can hyperlink it and it's not going to break the content or something like that, then absolutely. But like for example, if you're printing a book, obviously you can't do a click like that yet. So I would say no, it's not a pure requirement.
The semi-specific steps of how you publish anything would be great. I've been interested in doing this, but don't really know where to start. It all seemed really dauntingly complicated, so I kind of just gave up early on. Something like this would help people like me a lot. Again, as I just will point out, as we've established, putting something somewhere for other people to view is technically publication. That's not what you're getting at, but just reiterate that. So it sounds like you want to take something that you've crafted and bind it or put it out on the internet in PDF downloadable, kickstart it. I guess, I mean, if you feel very comfortable, which sounds like you do not, with the legal side of things, I would recommend you hire a lawyer to say, hey, I've done this, or a series of editors as well. Here's the OGL or here's the SRD or whatever it is. Can you comb through this to make sure that I'm in compliance with this before I go to Kickstarter,
Yeah. And honestly, most publishers that you work with in the space, if they're going to take your work and publish it for you, whether it's Hit Point Press, Hunters Entertainment, Cobalt Press, etc., are going to rely on you to have gone through your work and made sure that there's no infringing content in it. And they're going to shift that liability to you as well. So, I mean, at its bare bones, your steps of publishing are write something or create something, obviously. First, reach out to publishers, whether it's meeting them in person at Gen Con, Gamma, something like that, PAX Unplugged, or via cold email, something like that. See if a publisher will work with you. Otherwise, You get a layout editor to help you lay everything out appropriately, get a copy editor to help you make sure your copy and your work is properly done. Consult with legal to make sure, one, you got your trademark covered and you filing and copyrighting your work, but also to make sure you're licensing it properly. And then work through a third-party vendor that will give you a cost per book for binding. So cost per book can be as low as $2.50 for paperback or $4 for hardcover in certain cases. So it's actually not as expensive. The problem is there's minimum order quantities. So if
Yeah.
you're ordering one version, it's going to be more expensive as opposed to if you order 500, then your per unit cost is going to be more. So that's what you're really looking at when you're publishing. You're going to want to have contractor agreements with all of those people, your artists, your copy editors, your layout editors, your writers, etc. Once you get all of that into a conglomerate and build yourself a little team, then you can publish whatever you like. Get a booth at PAX Unplugged, booth at your local anime con, something like that, or publish it for sale on an online website using Shopify or something like that too. So there's
Reach
plenty
out
of
to
ways.
creators to promote your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of creators, will be happy to make a little post in exchange for something. Some of them want pay. That makes perfect sense. This is their livelihood. You should offer that if they want it. And so absolutely, it's totally doable. And I would encourage anyone watching this to try and do it because it is fun. I'm working on a book myself. So,
Same.
um, boost.
Um, distilling this one down to what I think is the general, because there's a handful that I'm skipping over that were related to the Daggerheart Darrington Press license,
Stuff
specifically
we've
the
already covered.
virtual tabletops, which we know has been updated, so I'm not worried about that. Do we have a list of all SRD and other related concept for companies out there? They're looking into a specific game to see if they have a license. What is there? Is this going to be a specific like
You're going to need
company
to,
to company?
yeah, it's going to be company to company.
Okay. So there
We
is
kind of
no
touched on.
grand list.
Right, exactly. Unless somebody's created one on Reddit and I'm just not aware of it. You know what I mean? But it would be like a fan that's gone out there, so I would verify that the licenses haven't changed, for example. And so you would typically go to the publisher or creator's website, or publicly available media, see if you can find it. Or in worst case scenario, shoot them an email and say, "Hey, do you have a license that I can use?" And they say no, and there are systems out there that don't have licenses.
Right.
So you shouldn't assume that every system has a license, which is another reason why the whole Darrington Press getting in trouble for having a completely open license is kind of wild to me because there's systems out there that don't have it that are successful. But that is all to say that, yeah, contact and asking questions is the best way to find out.
All right. If a person wanted to put their OC in content, how can they publish that on D&D Beyond without losing the copyright? It'd be fun to see a certain orange wizard up there, but can Ted license him out, or is it still, quote, on D&D Beyond equals ours from a WotC perspective?
If it's on D&D Beyond, are they referring specifically to homebrew content?
It sounds like it. So we talked about how
Yeah.
Theodore the Orange in concept is fan content policy. But if I
Right.
were to make a stat block
Yeah.
for him and then put him, so if I were to make a stat block for him, I could make it within the terms of the SRD 5.1, 5.2, create my own spells, make it unique so that it is a creative piece
It's
of
in the
content.
SRD.
But if I publish that stat block on D&D Beyond,
Right.
under the homebrew section of D&D Beyond, it is now out there. Is that my content anymore, or have I resigned my rights over by putting
I
it there?
have not recently reviewed the D&D Beyond terms of service, so I would
Okay.
need to check. It is there is here's what I think the answer is based on the last time I reviewed it. If you put it on D&D Beyond, then you are granting an irrevocable perpetual license to Wizards of the Coast and D&D Beyond and any, etc. company that is under that umbrella to use that content, including commercially, without further approval from you. So you don't lose your ownership, but you lose your control.
Gotcha. I think we might have to do it. It's too long for the scope of this video. There were some questions about the Shadowdark open gaming license, but
Which I actually have up on my other screen.
yeah, we'll have to. I think we might have to. Also, like, I could reach out to Kelsey and we could get the three of us on to talk. Like, we could get something like that going. But Could we see a potential D&D Beyond competitor now that we have access to the new SRD? Would there be issues with making a product too similar to D&D Beyond? I'd love to see a character creation tool that doesn't suck. Boy, you have high standards if you think the D&D Beyond character creation tool sucks.
Yeah.
But
I'm about to
either
say
way,
my
yes.
main gripe with the D&D Beyond character creation tool is that when I update a character, it is not immediately ready for export to PDF. I have to wait a couple of minutes.
Yeah. The answer to your question is yes, you could make your own virtual tabletop or your
Yeah,
own creative tool, using only the SRD content, which will
right.
limit you on what you can put out there.
Yeah,
Whereas the D&D Beyond tool set has access to everything, and that's D&D and now beyond D&D with third-party creators.
it's truly become beyond.
Okay, I've always wondered at the legal status of fan translations and localizations of foreign language systems into English for free use/access. There are precious few translation companies porting games into English. For example, Japan's Sword World system, which leaves the translation and localization to diehard fans who undertake massive multi-year passion projects and make them available non-commercially. This is separate from licensed translations, for example, of D&D or World of Darkness product lines into popular language such as Portuguese, French, German, Spanish at all through publishing companies abroad, and refers exclusively to presumably unlicensed fan translations. Are these fans translations legally viewed as a form of piracy and bootlegging? If not, why? If so, how are they still so prevalent and available without utilizing clandestine P2P/torrent style distribution on just open wikis and the like? Is this just an issue of IP owners abroad simply not pursuing their copyright due to international complications?
What I love is that that person answered their own question,
Got it.
but they just didn't know it. So yeah, no, it's technically not allowed.
Mm.
It's technically infringement, and the reason for that broad generalization answer is because we're not given specifics to the question about are they selling this? Are they just offering for
They
free?
said
Question mark.
non-commercially, so I'm assuming.
But
I know,
not
but
yeah, the term of commercial is ill-defined these days.
I
So
assume it
let's
means for
let's as
profit, but
let's
let's
assume they offer it for free. It's still infringement. Um, and the only reason that it hasn't been pursued is because those companies either have some value to not pursuing it, the cost is outweighed by the benefit, so to speak, or they just don't care and don't know. So it's usually one of those three. But absolutely, those original creators have the right to translate their content, and decide who translates their work, um, at least under United States law.
mm.
And so that would
So if it's a Japanese company, it's a
right.
Japanese game that I want to play here and I don't read Japanese, and uh, some of my friends love this kind of stuff. And for the past 10 years, they've lovingly recreated that entire system, 300 pages, let's say, is into English. And like they're offering it, quote, non commercially.
Right.
We're crossing international boundaries on the copyright side of things. So I don't know
We
if that's a.
are so you go into the jurisdiction typically where the infringement is found. And obviously, that changes depending on where you are. But let's go with, with that. Here's the problem. You're offering it non-commercially, which is a replacement for the market. So if somebody who can read both languages in the original jurisdiction finds your English version of this Japanese game, they don't have an incentive to purchase the Japanese version because they can have the English
I
version.
see. Lessening potential profits by forcing people to.
Exactly. It's
But
a
I wouldn't
market
have
replacement
purchased it before because I couldn't read it before. You know what I mean?
unless you can speak both languages.
Correct. So
Yeah.
it's a hyper specific example. Uh,
So there's a world in which also somebody could translate it back, and putting it out there for free opens the door, and they lose control. The original publisher loses control. Also, the localization rights are very valuable because any company, a U.S. publisher, could say, "Hey, this is not in the United States. Let me bring it here," and there's incredibly valuable rights for both parties.
all right, this is a really interesting. In the hidden meta tags, tags that help get things noticed when in search functions for websites, is it illegal to use copyrighted trademark terms,
Yes.
i.e., Space Marine, Beholder, Mind Flayer, etc.?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right. If something was made under fan content, such as, well, it's just not true, but such as 5.5 stuff before Creative Commons 5.2 came out, can that be protected if printed again with the attribution this time? Again, it wasn't covered under fan content policy previously, but it sounds like what you're saying is you made stuff or someone made stuff in using 2024 rules before the SRD 5.2 was released, and now are wondering, if I publish it again with that attribution, am I covered this time around?
Yes, as long as you adhere to the terms of the license, you're covered for the new publication.
But that
But
previous one,
your previous one, you do have some potential exposure liability.
because again, as we've established, fan content policy does not cover that.
Yeah, it's kind of like if I shot somebody and then the next day the purge became legal and I shot somebody.
Yeah,
Original shooting is not suddenly legal.
correct. Yeah. Because I didn't even think about that. I bet people were creating content with the 2024 rule set during the Unearthed Arcana process, and then before SRD 5.2 came out, because of the ambiguity in the fan license policy, or fan content policy rather, they were just getting around that, or thinking they were getting around that.
Exactly.
All right, this is another very interesting one. How does the licensing system for a game like Solasta work? I understand BG3 is licensed, but it doesn't seem like Solasta is. Does the SRD allow video games as well? I thought I remember them saying it was just TTRPGs. So if you're unfamiliar, Solasta is a very, very
Oh,
popular, very well-selling RPG that is
based on fifth edition.
1000% based on the 5th edition rule set down to the SRD. And it does a better job replicating 5e rules than Baldur's Gate 3 does. Like,
Does it really?
oh, it's phenomenal. It does. I mean,
That's
you wanna
cool.
talk about reactions, you wanna talk about holding
That's neat.
actions. It even has overland travel mechanics where you're traveling overland. How are you covering food? It has an option like, "Oh, somebody in the party have Goodberry? Let me check that. Okay, we're covered for food every
Oh, that's
day."
so wild. I actually know people on this team now that I'm
It's a
looking into it.
very, very good game, and they actually
So
just announced, not just as a, relative term, Solasta 2 is in the works.
yeah,
And they recently stated, I believe, that they weren't sure whether they were going to make it under 2014 or 2024. But given the fact that 2024 dropped into the SRD 5.2 and Creative Commons, that they're looking to have Solasta 2 use 2024 rules.
right. So the question is, how does this work? It's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. The SRD is not like pen and paper only. It's
Okay.
completely available to be used in other frameworks. Absolutely. And we actually have evidence of this dating back to the 2000s. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 is based entirely on 3.5, and the actual like move sets are based on actual things from 3.5. The subclasses, everything, it's directly in there. And then in the credits, there's an attribution to the OGL. So it's perfectly acceptable, and it happens all the time.
Now, had the OGL 1.1 or 1.2 gone through, it sounds like this probably would not have been the case.
No, it would have been bad.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question we have here, if there's another game system or content that you want to transform into content into 5e, as an example, Rollmaster's Arms Law, is there a
Right?
way to do that that does not infringe on copyright? I think you got to get your own license at that point, right? You got to
Gotta
reach
get your
out
own
to
license.
the person
Original
and
publisher.
then say, hey, however you want to go about it, but basically, I'd like to recreate the content that you made in your system, and convert that over to 5e.
5e. Now, what's interesting there is mechanically what you're doing in terms of like legally mechanically is you're creating a derivative work
Mm.
of a copyrighted work. So you need to go to the copyright holder and say, "Can I create a derivative work of your work?"
And if they say yes, then,
Yeah,
then you're good. All right. That covers all of the questions for the most part that we
you can
received
make
on the
Christmas.
what?
You're gonna split this into two videos. You know,
No, my fans will watch an hour and a half. That's
I
easy.
figured.
I'll put timestamps in the video to kind of, if you want to skip
Cool.
ahead to just the orc stuff or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. So they'll have chapters to be able to adjust accordingly. But thank you again, Noah, as always, for
Of
coming out
course, man.
here. I hope that you all find this useful. I did not know where we were when we started this video. I didn't know where we were going to land on the
Yeah.
Daggerheart thing, but I think a lot of interesting concepts were brought up about that license as well. So hopefully you managed to stick through the video and see kind of the general perspective on this. And again, obviously, take what we say here with a grain of salt, go formulate your own opinions on these things.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll just have to keep our thumb on the pulse of what goes on. And if more videos are required to cover updates, whether positively or negatively in the future, we'll definitely
Mm.
be here to do so. You kind of did a very stealthy inline
It was
promotion, but go
good,
ahead.
right?
And if people were looking to find outside of just you do more than just being a lawyer, but like, what
Right.
can people
Yeah.
find you?
You can find me on the internet at MyLawyerFriend on all platforms, including the one we don't talk about, but I post more on Blue Sky these days. And then you can also find me. I'm the DM of the Forgotten Paths podcast. It's 1 hour episodes. We have almost 155 out, 2 campaigns, and 6 miniseries. Got a lot of incredible people, including upcoming our very own Ted.
Hmm.
Um, and our friend like Captain Robert, etc. So check that out. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I see Ted every Monday on Captain Robert's channel for Tyranny of Dragons.
Yeah, it's a good time. You should come check it out. We have a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
again, we'll both be at Gen Con.
We'll both be
Um,
at Gen Con. Yep.
so, and if you want to come out and we'll be around. I'll be wearing this hat the whole time. So if you find me, you might find Noah, depending on the day. So,
My upcoming schedule's crazy. I've got GCX, Gen Con, uh, PAX West, TwitchCon, PAX Unplugged.
so Noah's going to be out and about. So,
Yeah.
feel free to bombard him with all your legal questions while you find
Yeah.
him in the street. But anyway, thank you again for coming on here and chatting for, almost 2 hours about legal stuff. But, it's funny. You'd think that this long, at least for me, you're a lawyer, so maybe it's a little bit different, but I'd think
Yeah.
talking for about 2 hours about licensing and legal stuff would be boring. And somehow I don't find myself like, oh man, I really wish this conversation was over. We're just
Yeah.
talking about the minutia of words in a document, but we always seem to keep it interesting the whole way throughout. So, thank you as
Of
always for
course, man.
this. And yeah, hopefully, knock on wood, we have nothing new to talk about for a little while. So,
Please, God.
all right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.